Hello and welcome back to Solo Board Gaming Presents The Last 100 Yards, and it's Volume 2, Airborne over Europe from Mike Denson and GMT Games 2020. So very quick recap, we're only doing the combat elements rules, so it's a simplified version and based on my theory that if you look at the rule book, because of the fairly unique rule set regarding closing that last 100 yards that infantry squads have to do, that is their role, if you like. So last 100 yards models this particularly well, but because of that, some of the rules are a little bit daunting to some and can delay getting this game to the table. So all I'm doing is simplifying the rule set, concentrating on the combat elements to reduce that toing and froing that tends to take place when you're trying to get the rules sort of all lined up. So we're just trying to reduce that by looking at the basic combat rules. And we're doing okay. We've had the Americans here form a bit of a base of fire, if you like, along this tree line. We've had a big hit on the one squad that actually ventured into the open field, and they have been reduced and disrupted. Meanwhile, we've had one platoon do a right flanking manoeuvre around this German position here. These are the Fallschirmjäger troops, the German paratroopers, and they're holding some stone buildings here, stone buildings there, and there's a squad that's retired off the road into this tree line here. So let's see how we get on and crack straight on with the combat. Let's go. So the Americans had their activation where both platoons have actually carried out all their actions. The Germans carried out all their reactions. We've removed the game markers. You have to imagine we've made the dice roll and moved our time marker. That's an important mechanic, although I'm not showing it in this game. As I say, I'm just concentrating on the combat rules, but it would have moved the time marker to reduce the amount of time left in the game. Because in close quarter combat, each infantry platoon or company has its role to play, has its mission. It can't just sit and watch, it can't hang about, it has to get that mission done. Hence that very important timing mechanic within this game. But we are simply moving on with the combat. We're going to imagine that the initiative roll now puts the Germans as having the initiative. So that's going to be our starting point. They only have one platoon, and this is two platoon here of first company. And they are now going to carry out their actions. There's no need to do a coordination die roll, as I say, because they do only have the one platoon. But something they are going to do, because I would like to model this, is remove that small arms marker, because I left it there from last time. Sorry about that. Oh dear. Okay, right. Small hiccup. Right, let's get back to it. So, the first thing the Germans are going to do for one of their first actions is call for mortar fire. They're going to call for mortar support from an 8 centimetre mortar section that your usual German company would have. Now that mortar section is off map. The scenario itself is going to tell you A, whether you have any mortar support available, and B, what kind of mortar support that is, whether it's a mortar section or whether it's a mortar platoon. which can be quite devastating. Okay, so in our case, it's going to be a mortar section, and basically any good order squad or section commander, platoon commander, can call for mortar support. But in this case, I think what we're going to do, we're going to have this squad here call for the mortar support. Now, they can do that if they're within 4 hexes, and they certainly are, of their platoon commander. So they're going to call for mortar support. And the first thing we're going to do is put our forward observer with them on the map in the hex where this guy is. There he is. It's for the Fallschirmjäger. It's for one company, and it's the side called Initial. On the other side, there's a side that's entitled Final. So we want our initial side placed in the hex that's calling for support. I'll just, so we can try and keep the clarity, place him there. So there's our forward observer. Now, he is going to call for mortar fire on this hex here, because we don't like the fact that there's a 30 cal providing support from those woods there. They are in line of sight, and that's important. It has to be in line of sight of our forward observer. So we're going to call for mortar support on that. So the first thing we do, each forward observer will have his equivalent mortar fire primary target hex. This is the chit that will signify where your primary target hex is. And our primary target hex is here, like so. So that's where we are calling for mortar support. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to roll a die. Okay, we're going to roll a die. No, it's not. Just before we do that, I am sorry. I'm misleading you here. Just before we do that, we look on our mortar fire action table. Now, we're going to be calling for HE. We're an 8 centimetre section for the Germans. So our primary mortar value on that primary target hex is a 2. Okay, so let me find a 2. So there we go. I've got a 2. So that corresponds to the primary mortar value. It's a 2. So I'm going to put that there for now to show us it's a 2. Now, however, there's die roll modifiers. Target density, if there's more than 4 steps in a target hex, there is not. Air burst, if it's in tree line or wood, it's going to be an air burst. Have you seen think of Band of Brothers, where they were hunkered down, the guys, in that woodland in the Ardennes, and came under tons of mortar fire that was exploding in the trees, deadly. So there is a 1 modifier. So that 2 is now a 3. Okay, so I'm going to place a 3 there. So that 2 is now a 3. Then there's the terrain modifier. Now the terrain modifier is -1. So it comes back to a 2, because woodland gives -1. And there's -1 because they are still concealed. So we're now down to a 1 in the target hex. So it's a couple of steps we went through there. Nothing tortuous, and we've arrived at 1. So I think what we'll do, we'll just go down a little bit closer to the action. Hopefully that's okay. So now, back to our table again. Is how accurate are the mortar rounds going to be? Are all of them going to fall on that target hex, or are some going to scatter? So let's have a look. It was this 8cm section that was firing. We now go to our how many die rolls do we roll to have a look at the accuracy. We're firing HE. We're going to roll 1 die roll. So let's do that now. And we have a 1. And we've hit that unit there. We've rolled a 1. Okay, so if you now take a look in the corner of your map, just there where you see the number 23, you'll see a compass, and we'll see that die roll 1 takes us to the hex to the left hand side. A 2 would have taken us there, and so on. So it shows us that direction. If we'd have rolled a 7, then the impact would have been directly on the actual primary target, and also 8, 9 or 10. So 7 or more, and the impact would have been back on the primary target, and we would put yet another die roll modifier on that primary target. Let's go back. Here we go. So we scattered, didn't we, to the left. Again, it's a tree line with an airburst. Our secondary value, again, making sure we're using the correct line here. Our secondary is a 0. And again, modified +1 for airburst. Like so. So that's our primary is a 1, and also our secondary is a 1. Got it? The net effect of that, and the great thing that a mortar barrage is good for, and this, for me, is relatively realistic as well. That hex, units in that hex, cannot now, this turn, carry out an action, and that includes a reaction. The only thing they are able to do is maybe attempt to withdraw if that's going to be the decision. But otherwise, they are pinned by that mortar barrage. Hey, their faces are buried in the dirt. So quite a powerful thing. That's regardless of what actual effect we have on the units in that hex when we come to the actual fire resolution. So regardless of that, they are pinned down and there's not a lot they can do this turn. Okay, next action of the German activation cycle. We'll have this squad here. Now, these are the ones that scarpered into the tree line during the last turn. They are going to take a shot. It's pretty obvious, and I'm sure they would. They're going to take a shot at this unit here. Okay, so here, bottom left, is their small arms fire factor of 1. The range is 10. They're only at, well, they're only at 2 hex range. So there is no minus modifier. So they're attacking then with a 1. They're attacking with a modifier of 1. We'll hold off on these guys. Instead, we might use the squad beneath here. There's not going to be any modifier because they're at range 10 and they're only 2 hexes away. So that's going to be another 1. Like so. So that's now 2 attacks on that unit out in the open there. So, oh, I'm forgetting my fire markers. So we'll use a fire marker there fire action, okay, and another fire action there. That's for the squad that's beneath that machine gun unit. The machine gun unit is going to fire into the hedgerow here. They're on 12. Again, there's not going to be any modifiers, so they're going to get their 1 initially, but let's just go through it. They're going to get their 1 marker for their 1 small arms fire, but also there's a -1 because of the tree line, so bring us back to 0, like so. So we have the squad that fired in this direction, we have the machine gun that fired in that direction. So all units so far, except the squad that's with Müller here, have moved. Now I wonder, I think what we're going to do, we're going to have Müller and his squad move. We're going to move 1, 2. Can't get into here because that would be 3.5 and their allowance is 3. So we will keep them there, I think. Okay. They've now lost their concealment marker, by the way. I'm not sure why I've done that. I think it was just by way of an exercise. So now, Americans, your reactions, please. Now, a very obvious one is for this disrupted unit here to try and carry out a recovery. So we're going to do a die roll, and the unit will recover if the die roll is less than or equal to the cohesion value. Cohesion value is still 6. That doesn't change because they're still highly trained and motivated guys. But we've got to add 1 to the die roll because they are suppressed, because they have DRM markers on them. Doesn't matter how many DRM markers, but because they have DRM markers, it means that they are suppressed. So we have to add 1 to the die roll, which isn't good. So let's go for that die roll. We're looking for initially 6 or less. And we've got a 2. That is a good roll. +1, of course, it's a 3. So they are recovered. But it's also marked as activated, because that was an action, if you like. There is one more. There's one more result that could have been. If we'd have rolled a 1, where are we? I was thinking that die doesn't have a 1 on it. If we'd have rolled a 1, although it's a shame, we would have got the +1 anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. But there is a result that could apply. If you roll a 1, if the die result is a 1, once modified, then they can rally instead of just recover. So it's a similar thing. So you turn them back over, but you don't have to mark them as having taken an action. So they're still free to take an action. So rally is just slightly different from recover. Just thought you'd like to know that. And quite important, actually, could be really important to a game. Brilliant. Okay. Any other reaction? Well, we already know that once these have a mortar marker on them, they can't carry out an action, unfortunately, although we could try and get them to withdraw, but for the sake of the exercise, I'm not going to do that. So it just leaves this unit here that have a range of 8, 1, 2. It's actually a range of 3. So they get a -1 on their DRM. So it's not a 1, it's a 0, or at least that's what it starts off as, a 0. like so. But as we know, there's also a terrain modifier, which for stone buildings is -3. Ouch! So that becomes a -3. Dear oh dear. And we'll put a fire marker on them as well. Lots of markers again, guys. Final reaction, because both of these fired. One more go at trying to reduce that building. I think we'll have our squad here open fire. It's going to be a similar result, except they're only 2 hexes, so they're not going to get a -1 for range. So we start as a 1 and then -3, so they're at -2. For some reason that flipped over. Right, so I think what we'll do, because these guys both fired, we'll use a reaction from here, this squad on the bottom, with an 8 range. At least they're not going to get the -1 for the range, so we start off with a 1. And then obviously it is -3 though for the stone building, so that ends up as a -2. So there's 2 markers on here then, -2 and -3. And they've now fired. And as a final reaction, I'm happy that both of those units have now fired and they're firing in another direction. So while their attention is taken, this squad is now going to move into that wood hex there, which is actually the path through the woods. I'm hoping that these guys can, because they've been left alone at the moment, and again I've done that deliberately just for the sake of illustration, that these guys will be free to carry out an assault on the very next turn. So that's the American reaction. Let's just put a maneuver marker on these guys. We forgot a maneuver marker on those guys. So Americans now say that's it, that's my reaction phase. The Germans are looking to see if they've got anything to further react with, and they don't. So both are going to pass, and we're going to go to fire resolution. Fire resolution, let's do the mortar fire first. Okay, we roll a die. And it's a 9. +1, that's a 10. So, let's see what that means. We can take that one off actually, because that one isn't affecting a unit. There were no units adjacent at the time. So we'll take that one off anyway. So let's just concentrate on this guy here. Wow. So the unit with the best cohesion, because we rolled a modified die roll of 10, the unit with the best cohesion suffers a casualty and disrupts. That's the unit with the best cohesion. Look, we've got a 6. It's a single step unit. So because it disrupts, it can't be replaced by because there's a casualty, sorry, it can't be replaced by a smaller section unit. So that is eliminated. That was devastating. And as a result, this unit here has to take a cohesion check. And it's got a 7, higher than its cohesion. So that is now disrupted. Like so. Devastating mortar attack. let's look at the small arms fire from this Fallschirmjäger unit here in the tree line against these guys way out in the open. So let's go. First, we got to roll twice actually. Both of them will have a +1, and we take the best result. Best result that is for the attacker. So let's try the first one. It's a 5 + 1, so that's 6. So that's one result. Let's try the other one. 6 + 1 is 7. That's the result we'll have. It's the better result for the attacker. So these guys disrupt, like so. Because on the first roll, they passed. So they're disrupted. Let's remove that. We can now remove these. Okay, so again, not good for that little unit there. We can remove these. I think the next ones to fire were these guys here into this hex. And also these guys into that hex. So let's try and see which one's which one turns out better. Let's try the -2. We've got a 1 -2. It's absolutely nothing against those cohesion markers. Let's try the -3. Oh! We rolled a 10. Ah, wait for it. We rolled a 10. So a 10 -3 is 7. That's what we're going to have. We're going to use that 7. Now, they've both got the same cohesion, so we could choose any. I'm going to choose the squad. So that squad disrupts, like so. And on seeing that, the machine gun unit has to take a cohesion check. Which they've passed. So they're okay. So that's how we're looking right now. That was a good fire action. Okay, these guys, simultaneous fire again. We're firing on these guys with a 0. They've both got 6, so we're rolling once against the 6. And we've got a 5, so we're okay. No effect there. They're doing well in that tree line there. Thank goodness they are, because they've got disrupted units either side of them. And that's it. That was the last fire action, I think. So we can take off our markers. Now we're going into an assault. We're going to show an assault here. And just so we can model it, just so we can demonstrate it, I'm going to assume that we've moved on, that it's the American initiative, and that the US has activated 1 platoon. I'm going to assume that these guys have not recovered here, for instance, so that is their state. And I'm also going to assume that they've carried out their actions for the turn. One of them, of course, was to try and recover, and they failed to do so. So that's going to be their recover action. And the other was to, for the machine gun unit, to attempt to fire on this unit here, like so. So they carried out an action that way, but they didn't achieve any result. But either way, the US are now going to carry out an assault. Now, the maximum amount of units that can assault a single hex are 4 steps. It's only 4 steps of units. So each of these squads are 2 steps of units. So for instance, if we look at these guys here, 6 and 6, one of those squads is going to move like so. And there's method in this madness. When assaulting from a non-adjacent hex, they're going to carry out their moves, 1.5, 2, okay, and these guys are going in 1.5, and they're going to assault that hex there. Now, first of all, to show that they're carrying out an assault, we are going to put an assault marker like so. Where did these guys come from? An assault marker like so, to show that they're going to be carrying out an assault. Now, at the end of the activation phase, we now show the nationality of the assaulting units. This is a US assault, like so, and like so, and we would place them in the hex. We're not going to place them in the hex simply because I don't want to cover everything up. So I'm going to move everything now that's no longer relevant. I'm going to remove that. That's no longer relevant. That's no longer relevant. The forward observer from that, that's from the mortar fire mission. He's no longer relevant. Just so that we can see what's going to happen here. So first of all, we have to look at what our assault values are. And one of the first things we do is take a look at the highest cohesion of any assaulting units. The highest cohesion value for the Americans is 6, and for the Germans is 6, so there's no cohesion modifier there. The next thing we do, if we look on the assault value modifiers, so we see what assault value modifiers we have for each force. First of all, let's look at the attacking force. There's no cohesion differential, we know that. No heroic envelopment. There is an envelopment, and that's why I deliberately moved this squad here that way to assault, because if a joint assault is taking place on a hex and each assault is from non-adjacent hexes, then we get an envelopment marker like so. Enveloped. So the Americans are going to get a +2. So let's look at the US getting a +2. The German force, no cohesion differential. They are in a rural building hex, so they're going to get a +1. And that's it, +1. So they are going to get a +1. Now that is their assault value modifiers. Okay, 1 for the Germans and 2 for the US. The attacker now subtracts the defender from its own. 1 from 2 is 1. So that's our final modifier is a 1. Let's put it there like that. We're now going to roll a die. Here we go. And we've got an 8 plus the 1, we have a 9. So we now look at the table, and a result of 6 to 9 on the assault resolution table gives us, is it an urban assault? No, it wasn't. It was a rural assault. No vehicles involved. Next thing, the defender must retreat, and each retreating non-vehicular, so we'll say infantry, each retreating infantry unit must conduct a cohesion check. And then we've got riders and truck passengers, leader loss, that's possible. Attacking and defending non-vehicle units, so attacking and defending infantry units, not disrupted, are marked with a regrouping marker. So first of all, the important thing is the defender must retreat, and each of them must conduct a cohesion check. So how do they retreat? Well, retreating infantry units must retreat to minimum to 4 hexes to safety, and it must be towards their own edge of the battle area, which for the Germans in our little skirmish scenario is going to be this edge here. So they have to retreat up to 4 hexes, and this is how they're going to do it. Along the road they're going to go 1, so it's all safe, they're not retreating through any enemy or anything like that, and also retreats are not subject to any reaction fire. So they're going 1, 2, 3, and they're going to stop there. And the final thing they have to do is a cohesion check, each one. So first of all, the top unit there against a 6, and they've got a 4, so they're okay. The bottom unit, the machine gun unit, and they've got an 8, so they are now disrupted. Against the odds really, and I did foreshorten it, didn't I? Because other things could have happened, to be honest. If at all possible, the German player would have fired on the units first, the US units first, but I assumed, just for the sake of the demo, didn't I, that they'd already carried out their actions in different directions. So the assault was basically successful, and I think it would have been anyway, but mainly because of the envelopment. Much more difficult if it's just from one direction. So we've pushed them out, they've had to retreat. The US have now taken that, and this is how I'm going to do it. Move that away, with their leader, which is Lieutenant Peters. We can move that, and take these away, and we're all done. Wow, that's it for this video. So this video, we continued with our small arms fire. We carried out a very successful mortar attack. That's not very onerous at all. We foreshortened everything just to demonstrate the assault on this stone building here. Because of what happened here, and then on the mortar attack, I thought it was going to be game over for the US, but it just shows you a strong assault here, bit of cheating by me, but not in the rules. We managed to take this building, so never, 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 ever say die. It can be done. Thanks very much for watching. Thoroughly enjoyed doing it. Really been enjoying this short series. We have one more thing left to demonstrate in the next video, which will be coming up fairly soon, and that is armoured fighting vehicles. I can't wait for that one. It'll be brilliant. Thanks very much for watching. Always appreciated. Please like, please subscribe. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.